we're looking at cannabis right now. It's a Schedule 1 drug because this is the way it's treated. For the record, ketamine is Schedule 3. All right? It is far easier to legally obtain ketamine on a federal level than it is to legally get cannabis on a federal level. All right? Coke and meth are Schedule 2, which means it is easier on a federal level to obtain coke and meth than it is to get cannabis, which is insane if you live in a state that has long legalized cannabis. It's insane if you're a person like me who, not to date you, Rico, but just to prove a point, my entire lifetime, save for like 6 months, cannabis has been at least medicinally legal in the state of California. So like me, and like I'm a pretty old Zoomer, like everyone under me has only known legal cannabis in the state of California. So this idea that it's more dangerous than coke or meth, like if you want to talk about what has an impact on kids using drugs more, which has generally been going down, by the way, because cannabis usage has kind of gone up potentially. But the thing that got kids to use drugs was adults telling them, oh, stay away from alcohol even though we're drinking it. Oh, stay away from cannabis even though it's way less dangerous than all the other drugs we're talking about. And so they go, okay, well, let's try all the other drugs. And then they start to learn the tough lessons, right? So there's this top-down disconnect between how we communicate on a federal level what is safe for people, what isn't safe for people. By the way, it's really funny that we do this when we live in a country where you had to argue with people on taking an antidote for a pandemic for COVID-19 and we're still having this cannabis argument. Like this should be a, hey, don't tell me what to put or not put in my body. I'm gonna but
right.
I don't want to get too sidetracked from this because what I getting into the whole thing of like taxes versus social equity are the two big things you need to kind of understand from this is that when the big sell of states like California that were really early to legalize cannabis was to say that by legalizing it, by decriminalizing it, you know, in open term quotes here, we will take it off the streets. We'll make it so it is less of a dangerous market. We'll make it so it's less of a danger on the streets. And we'll provide a legal way so that this stuff is making money anyways. It's making hand over fist money for the drug dealers. Let's make some of that money for the government in the form of taxes. And hey, you're worried about kids in schools and stuff? We'll use the taxes and we'll use that to pay for education. And so it seemed like this magic perfect thing. But, you know, and politicians loved it. You got legalization in the early aughts, not just medicinal marijuana, but recreational cannabis in states like California and Colorado on this guise of we'll just tax it to hell and we'll get rid of crime and we'll make the schools better. We've had a couple of years of that. And here's what you found. The taxes have continued to climb up and the illegal market not only still exists, but they're thriving because they're able to undercut the legal market. And so that's something I feel like you can get into as well, where as we're getting to this whole like legacy industry movement to the legal industry, which legacy is just a euphemism for the trap game. But how harmful is it when these politicians, oftentimes they're Democrats, approach cannabis with we can tax it and we can also at the same time decrease the effect of the criminal element of cannabis to it? Like how much is that at odds with each other and how have you seen that continually go at odds?
People think that, you know, like motherfuckers ain't hurting. The trap will never die because the taxes are too damn high. Right? So it's the easiest way to put this, man. Big bank, eat little bank. And the only ones with the runway to actually survive this glut of taxes is these MSOs, these multi-state operators, which a lot of them are just shell companies for big oil, shell companies for big tobacco, big alcohol. Sometimes they're just outright owned by those large entities and those large corporations, those large industries. They're just waiting because they have the runway to wait. They can last as long as they want. They can go 5 years without making any profit, but that's not my issue. I'm okay with that if you call a spade a spade. Pardon the racism.
I believe it's allowed on. I believe it's allowed in this one context.
But no, I just call it what it is. Don't fucking get people's hopes up, thinking that they're going to get an opportunity to get a crack at this thing, because that's what people are doing right now. They go into this game thinking, oh yeah, there's an opportunity to right the wrongs of the war on drugs. Like, no, that's not happening. Period. They're just going slow enough, and then they change the entire rules. They change the whole system. This whole social equity thing. We're gonna dive a little deeper in that in a second, but it's just a shiny object, and it's distracting people, and it's getting them to come out of the darkness so they know exactly who these people are. They're going to award a few licenses to a few people who are going to squeak by, but they're going to be playing the game that they were never meant to win. Period. You can't compete against multi-billion-dollar corporations when you just Malik from the street. You know what I'm saying? Just a Hector from the block. Like you can't. Period. And if you're going to get up to that position, to that level, you have to be one of these corporations. Just like you said, like I've been saying this for years. I've been trying to let people know you have to see the big picture, and you have to find a way to infiltrate those large companies, or find a way to actually become one of those large companies, or you're just not going to be able to compete. The game was already like sewn up. And social equity, I absolutely love social equity. I love the philosophy of social equity. I love the core tenets of what we built social equity to be, from the jump here in California. But at the end of the day, it's a buzzword. Social equity is supposed to be righting the wrongs of the war on drugs and the ills that came from it, targeting Black and brown communities. Well, guess what? Here in California, there is no affirmative action. You can't do anything business related that is more beneficial, explicitly in law, more beneficial to Black or brown people, period. So the meaning of social equity right off the bat is diluted, if not just null and void from the fucking jump. So you can't say it's going to help out Black and brown communities. You can say, oh yeah, it helps those who were affected by the war on drugs. So how do you measure those parameters? Some people are saying zip codes, but you know what? Everything's fucking gentrified now. I got 4 fucking white people. I live in South Central LA. I got 4 white people moved across the street from me in the last year. So if you go by zip codes, you're going to have a bunch of rich white people in there. Then you have people, other targeted or protected classes of citizens that believe that they deserve their due as well. And so that's when it gets dicey. You know, my plight was worse than yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to do this is like I want to paint the big picture here. So like you have on the top level, like the war on drugs was fought on like against people of color, essentially, because selling drugs and doing like and dealing drugs wasn't great, but people were using these things, and the government is fairly arbitrarily deciding these are the drugs that you can put labels on and sell with doctors and hospitals, and these are the drugs that the Reagan administration is pushing to the streets, or these are the drugs that we are going to criminalize and prosecute, right?
Correct. And so, Henry Alsinger, all the way up to Henry Alsinger, J. Edgar Hoover, Richard Nixon, and then it was H.W. Bush, the originator, and then Bill Clinton, Joe Robinette.
Yeah, in the Senate, Joe Biden has his hands on this with the drug war. But so you have that history going through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. You have people of color who are doing, are selling, let's focus on cannabis right now. They're selling weed. Yeah. They're getting arrested for it, for even carrying it or even using it. They're getting arrested for it, thrown in jail for 30, 40 years sometimes. And then all of a sudden, in the late 90s, you have states like California and Colorado and things like that start to legalize it on some level. What you get is you have these corporations who have a lot of money to begin with, who are able to outplay the people who are trying to say, okay, I'm trying to go into the legal market. I'm trying to adapt things and get better.
Hmm.
It creates that barrier because you have, like in other aspects of society, these really big corporations who are able to outplay the little guy. The little guy in this place, to add insult to injury, happens to be people of color who have already been, their community's been ravaged by the drug war and the over criminalization of this thing that's now all of a sudden become legal. The extra benefit to that is that all of these intentions to make the business more equitable are null and void due to state laws, or they're used as, I think you're about to get this in the future, they're used by these big, largely white corporations that have the money as cudgels, that they're used as chess pieces or props in order to make their own business practices look better. Because you'll have cases where you have big corporations buy smaller companies with social equity licenses, promise board seats to those people, and then they just never get heard from again. So basically, these corporations are buying them for the licenses, throwing up a black power fist and a pride flag somewhere saying we're down with the community, and then at the end of the day, throwing everyone aside. So, and this is what I'm kind of getting at, is that this is the structure that Democrats have made, right?
Yes.
This is the watered down policy you've gotten that hasn't been like from someone like, I think Obama could have made a good case for trying this. Like going
Could
at the
he really though? Could he really?
there's an eternal debate for like how far he could have gone, but he was the last president who like had the ability to, as the Democrats, to say, look, like,
Yeah.
on a federal level, this needs to be addressed because it's a patchwork if you leave it up to the states.
You know the craziest thing about all this is Obama could have spoken his truths about it, and it could have been so much more of a formidable superhero to so many people, because he was a recreational drug user. And you
Yeah,
know what? He could have done so much more good for people, for the decriminalization movement, and not in a selfish way like, oh yeah, Obama smokes drugs. No, nothing like that. But like, Americans, they take drugs. They like to relax. They like to do their own thing. They like to control their own fucking bodies, right? And they like to experiment with shit. They like to expand their minds, like all different kinds of shit. And the craziest thing that I'm seeing right now is such a shift in the cannabis industry of all these hippies and everything. They're all fucking turning conservative now, man. It's just like right in front of our eyes. Like you go up to Ukiah, you go up to the Emerald Triangle up north in California, you're going to have a bunch more conservatives than any of these liberals, because liberals they've fucked over people even more. And the black communities in particular, we have pledged at the very least 30 years straight up to Democrats and Democrat leadership and like all that stuff, think it's going to help us, and it hasn't. And people are gonna find out real quick. I think more people are finding out. There's a lot of willful ignorance, and the people who are still following, the Qs, and the people who are still following Donald Trump and all that shit faithfully. I'm not talking about, the anarchists out there like that want to burn shit down. I'm not talking about like the people who are, the quote unquote protest votes. I'm talking about the real fucking followers. Like those people are, he's fucking lying to you. And your struggle is Black America's struggle. Poor white America's struggle is Black America's struggle. Poor brown America's struggle is Black America's struggle. And once people start realizing that more en masse, they'll realize that none of these motherfuckers are shit, like at all. Like this whole passing of legislation right now and passing of the torch from the Democrats to the Republicans that we're seeing, that's about to happen at the midterms, it's just going to wipe out cannabis altogether. And how crazy is it going to be 10, 20 years from now when cannabis legalization is in, the CRT whitewashed history books of America's future? You're going to see, and this is actually going to be true history. It's going to be the three most influential people in the history of cannabis deregulation, cannabis industry overall is going to be A, John Boehner, B, Mitch McConnell, and C, the Koch brothers, whichever one's still alive. I don't even know that David or Charles, whatever that motherfucker is. He is backing. He is the power. He put the Duracell in the back of Nancy Mace, letting her pop off at the mouth and become a smarter, more restrained Sarah Palin that she is right now, and she's running the fucking show. She's a subjectively attractive white woman from the South. She has military roots in her family, and she's saying all the right things for all these big business people to back her. And everybody's like, yeah, we don't want to hear about cannabis legislation that says anything about social equity. We don't want anything about any protected classes. All that's in the past now. We didn't ruin your entire community. That happened in the past. You can't change any of that. It would have happened regardless. One way or the other, you niggers would have killed each other.
It's just fascinating how the Democrats, this is another story of the Democrats fumbling the ball. All right, because like you're largely in the cannabis spaces, I'm largely in the politics spaces, but what I see in the politics space is like numerous situations, especially during the Donald Trump administration. Best example is Afghanistan. The Democrats were supposed to be about, hey, we want to get the troops out of Afghanistan. We really care about this. And then Donald Trump became the first Republican to go, why the hell do we have troops in Afghanistan and Iraq? We should bring the troops home. We should be making America stronger, making America better again. And so you had the situation where Donald Trump is outflanking Democrats from the left and gaining advantages. Here's another example was COVID relief. All right? Like, everyone's blaming Democrats and Joe Biden for COVID, for boosting the economy with and like boosting inflation. A, all of the COVID relief happened most under Donald Trump, but B, Donald Trump kind of outflanked the Democrats to the left by saying, let's just give out money to people who need it so they don't have to go anywhere and go home. Like it was an instance where like,
it's really funny that you say that shit, right? Because Donald Trump gave welfare. He made us all welfare queens, and it felt good, right? And these, we're gonna talk about a little bit something in a minute here. Reparations, right? Because they talk about reparations, whether it's gonna happen here in California or not. I just like bringing it up just to see. Like physically see the hair stand up on white people's back as soon as I say that shit. I've been bringing it up on the news show like every day this week. And then the conservatives on the show like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Oh, it's not going to happen. How are you trying to attract them? How do you attract them? You want even 1/8 quadroon.
But here's the thing, right? Like, if Donald Trump didn't break motherfuckers off checks, it would have been pandemonium. It would have been crazy.
Chaos.
Right? And you see, he just socialized the entire fucking economy, and y'all didn't say shit. He gave motherfuckers.
But like, so to my point is that Democrats routinely miss the opportunity to like, hey, what you're doing, like. Republicans are so good at marketing because people can go on Fox News every single day and make everyone in the country believe that the things that Donald Trump did for them are socialism and dangerous, and that's why you should hate the Democrats. But in reality, if the Democrats were better at messaging, I have a segment later on in Power Report about how I think the squad, AOC, should be better at messaging, because when the Tea Party was in their position, they weren't getting legislative wins, but they were getting marketing wins that turned into political wins that turned into legislative domination. All right.
Well, what the fuck happened to AOC? Like I
don't want to get tangented off there because that's going to be a teaser for the later segment.